And may we say good afternoon to each and every one of you, and welcome to the Township of Douro-Dummer and our council meeting of the 16th of February. For those of you watching live on YouTube or the recorded version, we certainly welcome you on this very brisk winter's day. And before we begin, I just remind members of council that we'll be conducting the meeting to the best of our ability, the way we would if we were in our council chambers. So please give your hand a good wave if you would like to say something, and we'll do our best to make it as smooth as possible. We'll call the roll now. Give us a big wave for the benefit of everyone who knows what members of council are in attendance. First of all, Deputy Mayor Moher.
Good evening.
Thank you, Carl. Councillor Watt. Councillor Landsman.
Good evening.
And Councillor Watson. Okay, thank you very much. We have all members of council in attendance. The staff that are with us tonight, as we need them throughout the discussion, we welcome our temporary CAO, Martina Jade Hartwick. Martina, hi.
Good evening.
Manager of Public Works, Jake Condon, will be with us. He's probably hiding right now. Paul Creamer, our temporary treasurer, is also with us. Assistant Manager to Parks and Recreation, Mike Mood, our Senior Administrative Assistant, Vanessa Sweeting, and Administrative Assistant Nicole Zenner are also with us on the meeting and pushing all the buttons. Staff will have their cameras turned off, of course, until they are called upon. So I now officially will call tonight's meeting to order. And we respectfully acknowledge that we're on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi-Saayig Anishinaabe, and we offer our gratitude to the First Nation people for their care for and their teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please, everyone, join us for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you all very much. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest with any of the matters we're dealing with, please declare that now. Okay, seeing no hands. The agenda that's before us on the 16th of February, I would like a motion. No, we'll adopt the agenda first, that's right, of tonight's meeting. Carl and Sheila, all in favor? That motion is approved. The minutes of February 2nd, 2021. Motion, please, to receive and approve those minutes. Councillor Watt and Councillor Landsman, all in favor? That motion is approved. Any business arising out of the previous minutes? Okay, seeing no hands, we're going to move right along and be as efficient as we possibly can. Item 8.1 is our municipal insurance renewal for 2021. And Martina, I'm going to let you introduce our special guest tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our guest this evening is Barbara Ann Vespori. She's a vice president at Marsh Canada, and she's been leading us through this insurance renewal process for 2021. So I'll turn it over to Barbara Ann, and we'll go from there.
Barbara Ann?
Yes.
Welcome to Douro-Dummer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council and staff. Yes, we had a very, overall, as a municipal insurance provider, we had a very difficult insurance renewal. And most of our clients ended up getting renewals. Their December 31st or January 1st renewal was either between 20 and 40 and sometimes higher percent increase over the previous year. Fortunately for Douro-Dummer, you went out to market last year, and I wasn't part of the process last year. So Martina and I tried to familiarize ourselves because we were both new to what happened last year. Anyway, you went out to market a year ago and you ended up securing a long-term agreement under the liability premium, which is a big part of your overall premium. And that was very fortunate because it did bring down your total increase to an overall 7.8%, which is really, really good. And I think that if you talk to any of your neighbors or other municipalities in Ontario that recently renewed, you probably heard some horror stories because we're in a very hard market right now, and we have been for the past couple of years. And it got a lot worse this year in most areas, including liability, property, cyber. Pretty much, we're seeing increases in every class of insurance. In addition to that, of course, COVID has brought a lot of uncertainty to the already hard, difficult market that we're in. Just as a summary, I've been in the business for over 30 years, and I have never seen a marketplace like we're facing today. So fortunately, like I said, Douro-Dummer having secured that long-term agreement, and your claims were pretty good. So you were able to just get a 5% increase on your liability, just the liability piece, which you ended up with a 7.8% overall. And I guess I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Barbara Ann. I think you're absolutely right. Some horror stories I'm hearing from across the province. And Martina, I got a feeling maybe you were ahead of the game here. Maybe you had something to do with jumping on this sooner. Questions about insurance? Carl, go ahead.
Thank you, Barbara. And I got a couple of questions. And the limit of 5% increase on the liability, will that hold true for years 3, 4, and 5? If we renew each of the years?
I believe it was just simply a 2-year renewal, long-term agreement.
Okay, so if we had if there was big claims in the market, we could be affected by it next year.
That's right. And okay. Not only that, but we're seeing, I think we've been through 2 consecutive difficult renewals. And we don't really anticipate things to improve a lot over the next year. So unfortunately, you probably will be expecting another increase next year.
Okay. I got a couple of more questions unless somebody else wants to go there, Mr. Mayor.
I don't see any other hands, so keep going, Carl.
Okay. There is an escape clause in there if we chose to renew with another company or send it out to market again. As we purchase insurance to share risk, what would be an estimate of the premium reduction if we were to double all our deductibles? Any idea there?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but we could certainly go back to the underwriters and ask what the savings would be for a higher deductible. And that's certainly always an option. I would say that in a hard market, the savings that you get are not quite as good as they would be in a softer, more competitive marketplace.
I would appreciate even just a ballpark of what it would increase. The other thing is, I noticed the exclusion, the communicational disease.
Yes.
I don't think that's been in previous year renewals, or was it? No. Can you tell us more details about what risk we're assuming now versus the insurance company?
Sure. So you're very correct. There is a communicable disease exclusion under the liability policy that was not on our program previously. It was obviously brought about because of this pandemic that we're currently experiencing. And I don't think that the insurers or anyone else could have ever imagined that we would have gone through the past year that we have gone through. And very quickly in the marketplace, and the Lloyd's of London, so you have your liability through a Lloyd's of London insurer, and very quickly all of the Lloyd's of London insurers started issuing or incorporating exclusions. And we were fortunate enough with QBE, which is our underwriting syndicate at Lloyd's that is on your liability program right now. They excluded it on your policy, but then they added back in a limited amount of coverage. And that was a real win for us to get that put on there, because a lot of insurers have excluded it outright, not just COVID-19, but other communicable diseases. And so what that means for you, you now have a $1 million limit, sub-limit for any COVID claims, and it is subject to a $25,000 deductible. But what it means for you is that if for some reason a third party were to serve a claim against the township, you would have, I think the biggest piece is you would have some legal expense coverage to defend that claim. So I think adding that endorsement back on gives you the comfort of knowing that we're going to defend you in the event that you're brought into a claim. I mean, there's still a lot of question marks in terms of how anyone would be able to prove that a municipality was responsible for them contracting COVID or any other communicable disease. But the heart, again, I think the most important piece is that you will have the defense costs to defend yourself.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And one more question.
Sure.
Similar question on the cyber exclusion. We have cyber coverage, but what are we losing, or what could we be? What's at risk?
So I believe that the cyber exclusion is more of a clarification endorsement. Cyber has become one of those areas of coverage that is relatively new. It's a relatively new exposure, and you do carry cyber liability. So what the liability insurers intended when they put that cyber exclusion on the liability policy is they don't want to be covering any claims that would fall under that cyber policy that you currently carry. Or if there is a municipality that doesn't have cyber liability or cyber insurance like you do, it's not the intent of the liability insurer to pick up those types of exposures. Having said that, if someone suffers a bodily injury or property damage because of some cyber related activity, you still have coverage under your liability policy for those types of claims, which is what a liability policy is intended to cover. So I believe that it's just simply a clarification. And because you have a separate cyber policy in place, I believe that you're well covered there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure your 25 years with Marsh has been a colorful one from time to time. My errors and omissions insurance as a financial advisor was with Marsh for all my years in service. So.
Oh, good.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Are there any other questions of Barbara Ann? Okay, seeing none. Barbara Ann, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
You're
you.
always welcome in Douro-Dummer, just so you know that.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'd like to thank Martina for bearing with us as we went through this renewal, which was very difficult. So thank you, Martina.
Good, thank you.
Thank
Could I have a motion, please, to receive that delegation? Councillor Watson, Councillor Landsman, all in favor? That motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
We're moving ahead now to item 9, other business and staff reports. And Martina, I think you're going to wrap up the discussion about our municipal insurance for 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Barbara Ann spoke to you, we have finally come to a conclusion on our 2021 insurance. Barbara Ann has outlined some of the changes that have occurred. As you can see, we were very lucky in securing a 7.8% increase for 2021. It may go up in 2022, But for this year, at least, we're secure in knowing the coverage we have and the impact it will have on our budget, which is, compared to other communities, quite minimal. So I'm glad to see that. And this is just in front of you for information at this point.
Okay, again, do you want another motion? I think we've already had a motion for.
If you
Barbara,
would do a motion to receive my report so it can be part of the record, that would be
Okay.
helpful.
Good. Motion then to receive that insurance report from Martina, Councillor Watt. And no seconder? No? Councillor Watson? All in favor? That motion is approved. 9.2 is the annual building department reports. Is it Paul going to take this on? I didn't know you knew how to swing a hammer.
Well, this is the numbers of swinging a hammer, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm not sure there's a ton to say about it. This is an annual report that is required to be done for the building department. The building department needs to be reported on its own, and the township attributes some costs, some indirect costs. So there's in the indirect costs, there's some overhead related to building, and then some staffing costs related to some of the other staff outside the building department that are integral to the operation of operating that department. And then we get into the direct costs, which are, the costs that the building department incurred to operate during the 2019 fiscal year. And we get a surplus or deficit. So this, just a reminder that this isn't for 2020, this is for 2019. It came to my attention that this report was outstanding for the year. So I did get it done. So in a few months, you should see 2020 again, likely, at the completion or near around the completion of the 2020 audit. So in 2019, there was it was a good year for the building department, which resulted in about just over $100,000 surplus. That will be transferred into a reserve. That reserve is to fund a few things, two things primarily. One being the ups and downs that the department is going to have over the course of its existence. It's the nature of development. You'll have good years and slow your busy years and slow years, and that's what that is to reflect, and also what that reserve is there for, to help fund those slower years. And my understanding is we should expect 2020. It was a little bit slower, understandably, due to COVID-19. And then the other is this reserve will fund some of the capital purchases that the department will make, and largely those are going to be vehicles, as the department added a truck in recent, I believe it was last year or the year before. And that really summarizes that report. So what we're looking for council to do is to approve the transfer, to receive it for information, and then to approve the transfer into the reserve for the 102,493.89.
That's
Any
your
questions?
story, and you're sticking to it. Questions? Sheila, then Carl.
Unmute. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Paul. Do you by chance know the 2018 figure? Is that just off your head? It's not earth-shattering.
I don't have it off the top of my head. I should have it, but I don't. I apologize.
No worries. Just was curious. Thank you.
Carl?
With the 100,000 over the expenses, or 27% for the 1 year, should we be concerned about that so much when we're supposed to be revenue neutral, or can we average it over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period, especially in light of some of the things that you mentioned, like capital, the vehicle purchased and so on?
Yeah, so I think you answered your own question there.
Okay.
That
I need confirmation.
the idea of this reserve is that you're going to have your ups and downs, your ebbs and flows of development, and that the department as a whole needs to be there to exist in case, and it needs to be prepared to have those busy years.
Yeah.
Development, it's a service that needs to be in place for development. So therefore, it's understandable that there's going to be years that you're going to have more and years that you're going to have less.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Kramer. It's still on the reserves, if I may. So we're talking about $102,000 surplus for 2019 alone. Off the top of your head, perhaps this is what Councillor Lansman was asking more specifically. Do you know how much is in reserves to date or to 2019 total?
Martina helped me out there. So the 2018 amount was around 32,000, just over. And in that report, from what I can see, is that the reserve was established in 2018. So we would be looking at a balance of 134-ish thousand. But we do have a truck to fund. There's some software to fund, and we'll likely see this year that we'll need to dip into that reserve to fund some of the operations in 2020.
And COVID.
Yes.
Yep.
Great,
Never
thank
wrong.
you.
Never wrong to have a healthy reserve, Paul.
Right. And I believe Brian had a target reserve balance, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can get that for council. And that was a part of his fee review that he did with you recently, that there was a target of, and that was built into the fees. And so there is a natural surplus built in to get to the surplus. If we were to reach that target and we would sustain it for a couple of years, that's when I would say, okay, we've reached our target. Are our fees too high at that point in time? We have a healthy balance there to sustain operations for a few years. Can we afford to lower our fees at that point? But we are not at that target at this point.
Yeah.
And again, I can't comment on what the value will be right now for 2020, but it is nowhere near what the revenues are nowhere near what they were in 2019.
Gotcha. Martina, before I call for a motion, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to fill in some of the gaps, looking back in some past years, in 2015, the department lost $6,800. And then in 2013, the department was short $37,641. And then the years in between, the surplus was only a few $100s each year. So that kind of shows the ebbs and flows that can affect this department.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
So we've come a long way. Okay, I'm going to call for a motion then to receive that very clear report from Paul and to transfer the aforementioned money to reserves. Who would like to make that motion? Carl and Tom will second it. Carl and Tom. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That motion is approved. Paul, thank you very much. We're going to get you for a twin spin. This is FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially, there is another round of funding opened by FCM that we can apply to. We are working with Public Sector Digest and have been for a while to get this application submitted. But, you know, council should be on board with our plan to complete our asset management plan. There's not a ton new in this report. So if you go back to Treasurer 2020-21, this report is largely the same and asking for the same. Now, what is in addition to that report is a request for, it ends up being $11,025. The reason we are and what comprises of that amount is the township is required in 2021 to meet OREG 58817. And essentially that says that we need to have an asset management in place with certain components. And the key here is, though, that asset management plan is only required to cover core assets. And so what this additional 11,000 is in 2023, we will then need to complete the asset management plan for all assets. So I'm proposing that instead of completing the asset management plan this year for only core assets, and then re-engaging the consultant in a year or year and a half and going through the entire process and for those separate assets, that it'll be more efficient to do it all at once. And I think the other thing is it's actually just prudent to have an asset management plan for all assets and to understand all of the components for all of those assets. So the assets that wouldn't be included would be our buildings and equipment, and some of the other land improvements related to parks. So those wouldn't be considered core assets. And so this report is requesting for that additional 11,000 and to get council endorsement of this plan. And so we can include that endorsement with our application to FCM for additional funding. The one caveat being that if we are not successful in our grant application, because it's not a guarantee, we will need to come back to council with a proposal to fund the 50,000 that we're going to be requesting from FCM from a current reserve. And the reason why we can't just delay it is we do have an obligation this year to meet the provincial regulation of completing the asset management plan.
Okay, spelled out very nicely. Ultimately, what would you like from us, Paul?
The recommendations as stated to endorse our application, to direct staff to apply for a grant opportunity from FCM, and to approve or commit the additional $11,025 from the 2021 budget towards the cost of this initiative.
Good, very straightforward. Motion to do exactly that. Carl?
I move it with thanks, Paul. Thanks for the level of detail. And I do have a question if there's a second.
If we have a seconder, I will get to you. Seconded by Heather. Go ahead, Carl.
Thanks, Paul, for the detail. Much appreciated, because it's this whole subject is not one that is easily understood by councillors like us, well, like myself anyway. I guess the one question I had, is there any particular basis for why we didn't qualify for the 50,000 last time? And I kind of thought that the last time we were able to rescue it in some fashion, but that was probably before you were on the scene here. So is there any common thing that would suggest that we may not apply, we may not qualify again?
So the reason why we weren't successful in the fall was that the component that we had received previous funding from had not been completed. And so what they said is, you know, your previous application is still open, and therefore we're not going to approve a secondary one. I have been told from FCM that essentially there is a priority ranking in terms of who's going to get funding in these funding rounds. So the first priority will go to municipalities who have never received funding.
Okay.
And then there is a secondary, and I can't recall what they said, but you know, I think it is important that we have wrapped up the previous funding work, and we've gotten all that reporting into them, and they've signed off on it.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Anybody else? Motion's on the floor then. All in favor? That motion is approved. Paul, thank you very much. That was double duty for you, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
We move ahead to 9.4. Our manager of public works, Jake, is in the background hiding there somewhere. We're going to see there's the face right there. Thank you, Jake. This is County Road 38 Boulevard maintenance. This has been on a couple of council meetings, and we've asked staff to look at the impacts of the request to keep the boulevard on County Road 38 plowed in the wintertime. So, Jake, I'm going to let you review your report for us. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for not having this report at an earlier meeting, but I was waiting for the response from the township solicitor before I did my report up. So the following is information in response to council's request from a previous meeting regarding the County Road 38 maintenance, boulevard maintenance. The cost of the current sidewalk maintenance contract over the last 4 years is approximately little over $17,000, including the sand and salt. This is based on, it should read 147 winter events. There's a typo there, so, which changes obviously from year to year. The average cost over the same 4-year period is $42.50.62 per year. In addition, there would be continual annual maintenance and staff costs that will have to be added to the budget. These are for time to time with heavy snowfalls and such. We have to help the contractor out a bit with the excessive snow there for it to be removed. Also, I attached a copy of the section of the minimum maintenance standards pertaining to sidewalks for your information. These sidewalk standards are not applicable to, in accordance with the definition stated, as paved boulevards are not considered sidewalks. So, but I have included that so you can see the time frame and the amount of snow that's required before removal. And I've also included a couple of council reports from 2018 regarding the Main Street Revitalization Program funding, which was used towards the construction of the paved boulevard. Council did pass this and agreed to the installation of the paved boulevard on the south side of the bridge on County Road 38. I also reached out to the township solicitor to get some information from him. Based on his response, it's kind of the same thing. The boulevard does not fall under the minimum maintenance standards, so there's no additional liability to the township if they were to remain status quo and not provide winter maintenance. We also have a township policy for winter maintenance or maintenance on sidewalks during the winter. This would have to be gone over again if council did decide to include this into the policy. We would have to review that and go forward there. So going with all this information, my recommendation is to that the Public Works report before you dated February 8th, 2021 regarding the County Road 38 Boulevard maintenance be received, and that my recommendation is to maintain status quo and to keep consistent with the current policy in place. There will be, as I said before, some minor financial impact to the budget for maintenance and staff time if you should require to move ahead with this maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Do you have a price for the minimum price it would take to fulfill that request?
Well, based on the information before you, the average average price per year is $42.50 a year. So we can add additional $4,000, $4,500 to the budget to include that section.
Okay, just to be clear. Okay, that report has been thoroughly presented by Jake. Now it is time for any comments from members of council. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Jake, the minimum maintenance standards that are in place currently, are there summer maintenance requirements? When I'm skimming through this, I don't see anything, but I wonder if how a boulevard would differ from, say, a sidewalk, where we would be concerned about slip and trip as concrete starts to erode on a sidewalk.
Yes, there is sidewalk guidelines or minimum maintenance standards for the summer. However, they're again defined to a sidewalk, not a.
Oh, you're freezing up on us, Jake. Jake, maybe you want to take your video off and just use audio. Maybe that's part of the reason.
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him, but we got a good snapshot of him there. Okay, let's just give a sec for his internet to respond. And this is another fine example of why we all need access to solid, high-speed internet throughout the county and throughout Eastern Ontario. It's exactly the reason. Martina, you're there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
Is he going to sign back on for us?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, Jake has left the meeting and it appears that he's trying to regain connection. So just be a moment.
Okay. Let's just pause this subject, if that's okay with everybody.
There he is.
Jake, you're there again? Oh, you're on your phone this time. You're muted, Jake. There you go.
Sorry about that. My power went out here.
Oh, that's cute. I bet you don't have this much trouble with a snowplow truck. Yeah.
This is testing all of my technical abilities here.
I know. It's the way it goes. Welcome to the world of Zoom. Martina, what were we saying? Go ahead.
We were talking about the difference in liability between sidewalks and boulevards and summer versus winter standards.
So maybe, Jake, you could respond again to Heather's question.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so it again pertains to sidewalks, and under the definition of a sidewalk, a paved boulevard is not a sidewalk. So We still do have to maintain if that were to crumble and like you mentioned, provide a tripping hazard or a hazard of some sort, we still do have to maintain that piece of boulevard, but not necessarily for pedestrians.
Okay, no, thank you. Is that okay, Heather? That question's
Yes,
answered?
thank you.
Okay. Sheila?
Yes, thank you. I have two questions, and the first one may be very obvious to everybody else, but I've heard different definitions. When you say an event, Jake, and take a snow event, make up a scenario, if we wake up this morning and we had as much snow as we did get overnight, and somebody has to plow, then there's enough that somebody has to plow at noon and again at 4 o'clock. Is that one event or three events, according to your files?
You kind of broke up there, Sheila. I think you meant, I think you said if there was two.
If you had to
If they
plow three
plowed it
times,
twice or,
is that three
yeah,
events?
so you would be charged the number of times that he had to plow it.
So, okay, three events. Okay, and my
That
second,
that would include the event.
okay, thank you. And my second question is, in the policy, it, as you noted, defines a sidewalk as the part of the highway specifically set aside or commonly understood to be for pedestrian use. And if you go further to Dave Clifford's report of March 27, 2018, it talks about the project we're putting forth is to have a paved boulevard on one side, and but also conversations he had with some of the residents along that road. They would appreciate a place to walk and push strollers instead of walking on the road. I mean, to me, just because it says it's not a sidewalk, a boulevard or a sidewalk is some place to walk, and they both get plugged up with snow. I just not sure of my answer in that, and I'm not sure I understand the whole theory behind it.
No, you're correct. They are used in the summer, but this, as the minimum maintenance standards, that is technically for winter maintenance. So a sidewalk is not.
Oops, there goes the
Whoops.
hydro.
Defined as a paved boulevard. The reason for that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Nope. Yep, poor Jake is cutting out again.
Hello?
There you are. Okay, keep going with your sentence if you can.
Okay, so the paved boulevard is used for snow storage in the wintertime. That's the main reason why they put the paved boulevard on the edge of a county road. They can be used in the summertime for pedestrians, but 99% of the time they are not maintained through the winter months, because that's not the reason they're there. So that's why there's, in the minimum maintenance standards, the definition does not include a paved boulevard for winter maintenance. It does not mean that's not used in the summer by pedestrians.
Thank you,
but
Jake.
It just means in the wintertime it's not maintained.
Sheila, is that the end?
Yes, I don't have any other questions at this very moment. I just I understand if it's being used for storage of snow, but I just fail to understand how, when it's there and people are used to walking on it, maybe it'd be safer to maintain it.
So for all intents and purposes, whatever you want to call it, for all intents and purposes, it's sidewalk.
That's right.
That's, I guess, what I'm thinking. Carl, then Heather, then Tom. You're muted, Carl.
Got a question and perhaps a couple comments. Sitting in on some previous studies at the county level, I understand, and Jake, you maybe support me on this, is paved boulevards and paved shoulders are to extend the life of the pavement of the highway that it's beside. Is that true in most cases? At least that's what I heard at previous meetings, because it does extend the life and you don't have the same breaking up of the pavement along the edges. It lasts longer.
Yeah, that's correct. It provides more stability to the road surface, as you mentioned, and it's also a spot to have that. You have an area then for the snow when it's plowed off the road, somewhere where to lay instead of coming back onto the road.
The second question or second comment, and I don't know whether you can verify this, Jake, or not, but driving that road a few times since this subject has come up, the road seems much wider than it was previously. Is that possibly true, or is it just me? Maybe it's the boulevard that's giving that illusion.
I can't really comment on that. It quite possibly could be, depending on how long it had been since it was reconstructed. It could be wider now, but I know they did pave them shoulders going up the hill out of on County Road 38, I think, just for
Erosion.
Erosion.
Wasn't part of it for bike lanes too, or bike safety, Jake? Maybe I'm wrong.
I can't comment on that.
Okay. Then don't. Okay, Carl, are you done?
I'm having difficulty with this whole subject. I would love to provide the service. However, I can think of 3 or 4 or 5 other locations that are going to be right behind this request. And they probably fall into the boulevard as well. And some of them are sidewalks as well. So I just having difficulty with it. I know there's probably a need, but whether we do it in this and wait for the next meeting and the next meeting down the road, or that there's going to be others that request the same thing. And that's what I'm having difficulty with. So, and it's our policy, it is contrary to the policy. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Heather, I apologize. I'm going to jump here in front of you, but you'll still have a
I'm
chance.
sorry, Heather. I
No.
apologize.
Do
Yeah,
you
it
want to go
was
ahead?
Heather, then Tom. So whatever
Yeah,
you
go ahead,
two want to do.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just picking up on something that Jake, you had said earlier through you, Mr. Mayor. Have you spoke with the county about the impacts of us taking care of snow removal on the shoulder, on the boulevard? I understand it's a county road. County is responsible for snow control on the road itself. We would be responsible for it on that shoulder. Where will that impact where the snow goes, or they're just going to keep putting more snow on the shoulder if they plow right after we plow?
Jake?
Yeah, that's you kind of answered your own question there. That's exactly what happens is we clean it off and they come by and put it back on there. So it's but that's a battle with all sidewalks or boulevards. If right beside a roadway, they get plowed off and it goes right on the back on there.
Good observation, Heather. Yep.
Thank you.
Tom, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As we know from previous meetings and that, I've been kind of pushing this to get passed. Looking at the reports and stuff, yeah, there is a kind of a question in there. It's not a sidewalk, so it really doesn't fall under our sidewalk policy. It's a boulevard. So there's that fine line there. I know it's getting used for the same, but it's not a sidewalk. So this is a one-off deal by itself, which we've done before on certain circumstances where we just deal with them as they come, if there is any more that come. My one thing that I'm kind of looking at here is the fact that we spent this boulevard was actually put in place because of the requests of the people. As far as I remember from the reports, we spent over $80,000 between township money and grant money, which is still all taxpayer money, to put this boulevard in to help these people, and we have a letter down further with quite a few numbers on it of people that use this on a daily basis. And I don't see the reality of spending over $80,000 on a boulevard for people to walk on and then not keep it, that they can use it as a boulevard. So I'm really stuck on the fact that, we really should take a strong look at keeping this cleaned off for these people to walk down. I don't think I'd want to walk down the side of that road with a stroller, but that's just me. And that's my comments, but I am in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Jake, any idea on how many other areas in the township might have a similar situation going on? Carl mentioned some, but do you have any idea, perhaps more accurately?
We have, well, there's a number of sidewalks, actual sidewalks within the village of Warsaw that we do not provide winter maintenance to. There's sidewalks in the village of Douro that we do not provide winter maintenance to. And there's a paved boulevard up at Lakefield College, if you remember, that's kind of, the request is there that we're to provide something there as well, which we're working on, coming up with an agreement there.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Okay, well, we need to move on. We've heard from everyone. Is there any other member of council who wants to discuss it? You've seen the report. You've had the report previously. Carl, go ahead.
There's one other item that I've observed, and that is the paved boulevard is not accessible. If you look at where the paved boulevard goes around the Clifford Road and at the bridge, there's no ramp for a wheelchair to get on and off the boulevard. So that's further demonstration that it is in fact a boulevard and doesn't provide accessibility.
Well, we need to make a decision on this. We have some good people in. I certainly understand their requests. They walk this every day. I certainly get it. There's two sides to every story. I think we need a motion to move on. Go ahead, Tom.
I'll make a motion that we do proceed with maintaining this boulevard. As far as I'm concerned, that was what it was put there for in the first place.
Are you mentioning any financial impact or just whatever it costs?
I know there's going to be a financial impact, but I guess we're going to have to incorporate that into the next budget to take it out of reserves this year or whatever we have to do. There's not very much winter left, hopefully, and then have it in for next year's budget.
Okay, that is a motion that is on the floor. Is everyone clear on the motion? Do we have a seconder to that motion, please? Sheila is going to second the motion. Any discussion? We're going to call for the vote then. Heather, go ahead. Did you want to
Thank
speak
you,
to the
Mr.
motion?
Mayor. Yeah, I did. Sorry. Thank you. I appreciate what the work has gone into the report and what Councillor Watts is doing and what the residents are looking to do. But quite frankly, I feel that in order to support this motion, I'd like to see something that looks more not on a street by street or boulevard by boulevard basis, but as the township as a whole. So until such time that we can start looking at this in a more macro or fulsome way, I can't support the motion that's before us tonight.
Okay, that perhaps could be another motion should you decide to, Heather. That's good. Councillor Landsman, speak to the motion, please.
Whoops. Yes, speaking to the motion, I seconded it and I am in favor it and would consider another motion after, should this pass.
Okay. So, Carl, go ahead.
That's going to be pretty confusing. If it doesn't pass, then is there another motion, or is there? If it does pass,
well, we're dealing with this motion. Forget about any other motion that might come.
I think we've got it.
Yeah. Okay, the motion is on the floor then to proceed I'm a little concerned there is no financial impact in the motion. What if it costs $1 million? I'm exaggerating, of course, but you've got to put parameters on things. But we'll call for the motion. It's very clear what it is. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is lost. Does anyone else have another motion? Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that for the 2021 snow removal season, that staff report back on what the possible rollout could be of a shoulder boulevard sidewalk maintenance program.
So indeed, that motion, Heather, if I'm reading you correctly, is leaving the door open to address it next year, perhaps, if it coincides with an overall policy for the whole township. Would that be correct? That makes me feel better. Will anyone second that motion then? Carl?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Anybody else for the comment on that motion? All in favor? That motion is approved. Okay, the door is still open, and let's hope we can come up with a fair. There's compromise in everything we do, and we got to remember that. And it's nothing personal, but we have to look after everyone in the township. Sheila, go ahead. You're muted. You're muted, Sheila.
Okay. I'm not muted now.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I thought you had said if anybody had a comment, and that was why I put my hand up. So I just wouldn't mind hearing the motion repeated.
Madam Clerk, can you decipher the meaning of what we tried to get across there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Moher, is that the Public Works Report 2021-06, dated February 8th, 2021, be received, and that staff bring back a sidewalk maintenance program to address the whole township to be put in place for 2022 based on results. I'll accept clarity if it's needed.
I think there was, I think Heather, you mentioned boulevards, paved shoulders, or
Incorporating all those things into it.
right,
Yeah.
incorporating all those
Correct.
things.
Sidewalks, boulevards, shoulders. Yeah.
So we're keeping this matter alive is what we're doing. And let's hope we can find a way to do that. Councillor Landsman, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I believe, Heather, did you not mention 2021, winter 2021 in your motion?
21, 22?
Sorry. Yes, yeah, the upcoming, not this middle of
No,
this
I understand
winter.
that.
The next winter season.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2021, 22. Okay.
Okay. And we did vote on that, Martina?
You did indeed.
We did indeed, and it's done. Thank you, everybody. Good discussion. There's no magic button we can push and make everybody happy immediately, but we're working on it. I've got it ordered, that magic button from Amazon. So when it comes in, we'll all be happy. Request for ice season extension. Whoa, welcome COVID, and the whole world is changing here. So who wants to address that? Mike, are you on the line? Mike, are you hiding there? Mike
yes,
Boone?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
Okay. Yes. Unfortunately, I'm having high-speed issues at my place as well, so I had to call in tonight.
Okay, go ahead and get down and dirty about it, and let's hear it.
All right. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this report, we just want to give you an overview of from December 26th that the provincial lockdown that was put in place by the province. We just wanted to give you an overview of what the estimated costs were for that duration that we were closed. And as everybody knows, the current lockdown actually ended today. So we have been proposing with our user groups to reopen this Friday, pending this report's approval and everything. So I did want to give you guys a little bit of the financial impact rundown. We were approximately 7 weeks shut down. It was approximately $60,000 in revenue losses. The seasonal staffing that we saved was approximately $16,000. Utilities are unknown at this time, and that's only because Hydro has not produced us with the last month's bill. But I did run some numbers on our compressors. For the last month, compressor 1 and 2 averaged less than 30 hours. So that's under an hour a day. And just to give you an idea of, in comparison, a normal day operation, depending on how many rentals and how many, what the outside temperature is, we average about 6 to 10 hours per day per compressor. So that's a considerable less operational cost with not actually having the facilities open. So that's approximately 150 to 270 hours that the compressors did not run. So we should see a really good savings on that side of things. But until we get those numbers, it's not exactly sure of what that will be. So going down further, to talk about the 12-day extension that minor hockey is requesting. I have done some additional numbers. The potential revenue is about $16,000. We modeled an exact week of the exact days that minor hockey is proposing to extend. So that is the current rentals the previous weeks before. We have surveyed all of our users. We have 14 different users. 7 have said yes, that they do want to extend. 1 has said no, and we're still waiting on 6 people to get back to us. So there is quite a bit of interest for us to extend that season. So the extra seasonal staff costs would be approximately $4,500 to cover those rentals. I did take last year's hydro bill in April when the ice was typically closed. I wanted to use April, obviously, because it's the same comparison. Our heat would be running still in the facilities. So when I take those numbers and I compare it to another year or another month, it's approximately an extra $4,000 in hydro for that duration. And I'm approximating about another $1,000 in miscellaneous costs, and that is propane for the ice resurfacer, blade resharpening, sanitization, cleaning, and all that stuff into that additional miscellaneous. So if everybody was on board and we do get all those rentals, it would be a potential $6,500 increase in our revenue side of things, which we greatly need at this time from the approximately $35,000 that we lost due to our shutdowns. But any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Good, Mike. Just before I go to Heather, we've heard very serious recommendations from our medical officer of health about making sure we do not rent to those outside our home community. You're well aware of that and are taking those measures, I assume?
Absolutely. Yep. All these rentals that we currently have in place are all locals. We are screening them as they come in if there is any more requests, down to just where they're coming from, the locations and stuff like that. We ask for them to provide all that information prior.
Good going. Heather?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I appreciate the detailed number breakdown, Mike, that you've provided us this evening. Quite frankly, as long as we can open safely and do so, of course, under the public health guidelines, as I'm sure staff are going to make sure that everybody's doing, I'm fully in support of moving forward with the recommendation to extend the season as possible. I just want to ask one question, however. You're talking about revenue lost and the cost of staff and operating costs for the Douro Community Center. And I appreciate wanting to be obviously stewards of the dollars that we have, but typically speaking, our arenas, and I say plural, both run at a loss every year. Are you factoring in monies that are saved from perhaps the Warsaw Community Center not operating? And have you done any kind of accounting on that as of yet, where we're at within the department?
As of right now, this report was just based on Douro's operating costs. Warsaw was not included into this factor.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Heather, any other comments? We'll try to get a motion. Tom, then Carl.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, thanks, Mike. That's a good report, and I am fully in support of extending it out the extra time, whatever. Our minor hockey is crucial in our area. These arenas were built for our children and our families and stuff, and they've got shortchanged so far with this COVID. No, nobody's fault, but it's just the sign of the times and things, and I'd like to see them get that extra time, and I'm well in favor of it. And thank you very much for the financial side of it.
Carl, go ahead.
Yes, just a quick comment. Mike, you've already verified with minor hockey that they do want it extended. Having had a bit of experience in minor hockey a few years ago, unless there's playoffs, it used to be very difficult getting people out at the end of March because of the warmer weather. I assume you've challenged them that, if we give them the two weeks, they're going to comply or come out.
Yeah, absolutely, Carl. You're completely right. This year is totally different, though. Our minor hockey has completely stayed in-house. So they aren't playing outside teams. So they're just playing amongst themselves.
Okay.
So this request is based on the hours, exactly how they have it week by week now. And they are asking to use the exact same hours throughout those weeks. And they said that they will pay for their ice, even if they do not use an hour here, an hour there.
That's the least we can do for them. It's been just terrible for the young people that want to be on skates. Martina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to highlight what our reopening will look like if council does approve this, just so you're aware of all of the safety precautions we have in place. So as council knows, we created a 4-stage reopening plan earlier in, I guess, late in 2020. So we are proposing that we're going to be opening under a modified stage 1 process. So we will be allowing parents of young children into the facility to help them get ready and to act as spectators, because with younger children, you need a few extra eyes on them. For the older kids, we will not be allowing spectators to start. We will be allowing the use of dressing rooms and our alternate dressing room locations, depending on what the schedule looks like and what's agreeable to staff, to make sure that we don't have any traffic problems throughout the facility. And of course, we'll be doing all of our normal sanitization and screenings and other safety procedures. We do have a safety plan posted at the arena and on our website for the Douro Community Center. And we've asked all of our user groups to produce their own safety plans to outline how they're going to mitigate their risk and the township's risk. And we've already received minor hockey's report.
Great. Well, thank you, Martina and Mike. I know how much work you put into this with the eventuality of getting open again. We certainly appreciate it. Let's do what we can do to make this happen. Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the recommendation that's before us this evening to receive the report and extend the ice season another 12 days using the stage 1 regulations that we've put in place.
That's great. Seconder, please. Tom, go ahead.
Absolutely. I will definitely second that.
Seconded by Tom. Very good. Let's get back on the ice. All in favor? That motion is approved. Thank you very much. Mike, you can get back on the ice machine right now if you want.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Committee minutes, other reports before you. The Police Service Board from the 26th of January. A motion, please, to receive and approve those minutes. Heather and Tom, all in favor?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment on them, if I may.
Go ahead.
I noticed the minutes aren't showing that the flashing light has been now installed on Highway 28 at Division Road. So I just wanted to carry that back to the Police Services Board. Personally, my thanks for their work on that.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. Martina, we'll get that investigated. Thank you. All in favor? That motion is approved. We have a few action items that you've all had privy to and are well versed in. Township of Baldwin and Township of Terrace Bay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry,
Yes?
I'm just going to interrupt you for a moment.
Oh,
There is
sorry,
a
bylaw.
bylaw.
We missed a bylaw. I am sorry. My deepest apologies. We have one bylaw to deal with, 2021-17, and that's a bylaw about the fishing on public wharfs. Martina, give us a quick review of it, please. We discussed it at the last meeting.
That's correct. So through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a bylaw in response to Council's request from the last meeting to extend the prohibition on fishing at the municipal wharfs until March 1st, 2022.
When it will be readdressed.
It will be, and as per Council's motion at the last meeting, we're also going to bring some type of consultation plan forward to Council earlier in 2021 so that we can have a fulsome discussion on how Council wants to proceed in the future.
And for those listening, our main reason, of course, is COVID-19 and the lack of any cooperation for social distancing. That was the situation last year. It's the situation again. And we are emphasizing safety again until we deal with it again next year. Sheila? You're muted, Sheila.
I was just going to make a motion to approve bylaw 2021-17.
Good, thank you. A seconder to that motion, please. Heather? All in favor? That motion is approved. That bylaw is now in effect. Okay, action items, Township of Baldwin and Township of Terrace Bay. And that's about closing of the Ontario Fire College. We heard our fire chief discuss that at the last meeting. What is your wish, please? Tom, go ahead.
Yes, I actually spoke to Chuck about this just to see if there was any comments that he wanted to throw in, and I'm going to just make a motion to receive it.
Receive, seconder, please. Sheila, all in favor? That motion is approved. From Guelph, Aramosa Township, requesting the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services to review the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and consider recommendations before them. Mr. Moore, go ahead.
Perhaps Martina has a comment before my motion.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, you're muted.
Any comment on that, Martina?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would love to see Council receive and support this motion. The MFIPA legislation has not been reviewed for many years and does not account for all of the new technology that we're using and the new ways that we save information. Further to that, the fees that are part of MFIPA do not even come close to covering any type of municipal costs. So we are subsidizing any request, and should we get frivolous requests or vexatious requests, we are then having to pay for those ourselves because they're not getting covered. So
good picking. Carl, are you making that motion to support?
Yes. Yes, I'll move it. There's one part of it that I disagree with, but I'll see if it gets seconded.
But okay, who's going to second that? Heather will. Go ahead, Carl. It's either the motion to support or not.
One of the proposals in there is to, right now, council is designated as the head for privacy. And they're planning to give that, I think, to the CAO. I guess with your review of it, Martina, you're suggesting a total review of the whole thing, which I'm sure will get picked up in that whole review.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I can't get hung up on it.
Okay, Martina, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is what my association AMCTO is recommending, a whole-scale review, and they have created a committee to review this piece of legislation if the province supports it. That will involve municipal staff, councillors, and
Good.
Ministry staff as well. So I think even if a municipal clerk or the CAO is designated as the head for any legislative changes, I'm sure there's going to still be some type of report back requirement to keep council informed on the actions that happen under this piece of legislation.
Okay, that's got us covered. That's okay then, Carl?
Yes.
Carl and Heather, all in favor? That motion is approved. City of St. Catharines requesting permanent universal paid sick days for all workers in Ontario. Receive or support, or both. Councillor Landsman, go ahead.
I would make a motion to receive it.
To receive it is on the floor. Will anyone make a second to that motion? Carl?
Yes.
All in favor? To receive is approved. And finally, we have a letter from Donna Peacock. This is about the subject we've spent some time on at the meeting, and that is the Warsaw Winter Sidewalk maintenance. Donna was good enough to estimate the amount of foot traffic throughout that route on an average day. Heather, go ahead.
I move that we receive that with thanks from to Donna.
And perhaps forward it to staff for that comprehensive review would be appropriate. And a seconder to that, Carl?
I think Tom seconded, but I have a question.
No, I didn't name a seconder. Go ahead, Carl.
I think you maybe intended this, Heather, but you want a note to be sent to Donna thanking her for her work?
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the motion. And Carl, your second, that's good.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? That motion is approved. Information items. 13.1, this is Waste Management Quarterly Report. Tom?
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive from Tom, seconder by Heather. All in favor? That motion is approved. Accounts to February 9th are in your package. Heather?
I will move to receive.
Receive and pay the accounts, seconder. Sheila?
Got a
Question, go ahead.
Couple of questions. On page 2, line 8, the eSolutions website, there's an invoice there for $10,400. Is that the total budget, or is that just an installment of the amount that we owe the website developers?
No, it's just part.
Go ahead, Martin.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is just a portion of the project.
Okay. And I wonder if sometime we could get some comments back on whether we're happy with that company or not. I came away from the last conference call with them that I lack confidence, like a lot of the questions, a lot of the information didn't seem to be as vibrant as I would expect from such a company. But maybe it was an unusual day for me to interpret something that's not there.
I can
The other
report
thing-
back on that.
Yeah.
The other thing was page 7, line 15. We have and I believe this is something we're going to plan to do before next winter as well. And that is the backup snowplow. We're going to look at that to see if it's maybe feasible to bring that job in-house so that we would have that employee to do some of the continued trimming and so on. That is a good time to do it when the leaves are off the trees. So I just want to verify that. And
Sorry, through you, Mr. Merritt, that is on Jake's work plan to bring
Good.
something back because that contract is coming up in 2022.
And page 10 of the accounts, it's a refund to one of the users of the community center. And it's a group called the Beer League Hockey Practice. I wonder what their strategic plan is for their organization. I don't need an answer to that, but I just find it unusual that we would be renting to such a group.
Okay, any other questions on that motion? All in favor? Motion is approved. No notices of motion, no announcements that anyone has made us aware of. We are going to request a motion to go into closed session over personal matters about identifiable individuals and proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. Could I have a motion, please, to go into closed session? Sheila and Heather, all in favor? That motion is approved. We will be enclosed for the benefit of those watching. We will come out of close, but the meeting will have been over by then. So isn't that correct, Martina?
That is correct.
So we thank you very much for being with us during this council meeting. And we indeed will be back again at our next scheduled time. So we'll take about a 2.5 minute break. We'll stop the recording and we'll be back in closed session. Thank you, everyone.